Jack Redmond woke to the sound of thunder, but the sky outside his farmhouse window was clear and full of stars. Strange, he thought, as he pulled on his boots, the rumbling grew louder. Shaking dust from the ceiling of his small bedroom, he grabbed a flashlight and stepped onto his porch. The Nevada night was cool and silent except for that strange rumbling which now seemed to come from behind his barn. Jack felt his heart race as he moved toward the sound. No storm should make that noise as he rounded the corner of his weathered barn. The sight before him stole his breath away. A small craft about the size of a pickup truck had gouged a path through his eastern field. The metal, if it was metal, glowed with a soft blue light. Despite the smoke rising from its damaged hull, Jack approached slowly, his hand trembling on the flashlight beam. This was no military craft, no airplane he had ever seen. The design was too smooth, too perfect. Like a teardrop frozen in metal, a seam appeared in the side of the craft as he watched sliding open without a sound. Jack raised his arm to shield his eyes from the sudden bright light that poured out. When he lowered his arm, he saw her. The being standing in the doorway was clearly female, but not human. Her skin had a purple hue that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight like fine scales. Her eyes were large and almond-shaped, glowing amber in the darkness. She stood taller than Jack by at least a foot. Her slender form draped in something like silver fabric. She stepped forward and stumbled. Jack moved without thinking, catching her before she hit the ground. Her skin felt warm, almost hot to the touch, and something wet soaked through his shirt where her side pressed against him. Blood. He realized, though, it was darker and thicker than human blood. Help. She spoke the word directly into his mind, her lips never moving, a telepathic connection forming instantly between them. My ship damaged, must hide, government men coming. Jack looked toward the horizon, half expecting to see headlights or helicopters already approaching. How did she know others would come? Perhaps the same way she spoke to him without words. What happened to you? He asked aloud, unsure if he needed to speak for her to understand. Shot down. She replied, her mental voice growing weaker. Scoutship mission peaceful, must not be found. Jack had never been one for politics, but he had lived long enough to know what might happen if the military got their hands on an alien, especially an injured one. The stories he had heard about Area 51 were probably just rumors, but he wasn't willing to take that chance. Can you walk? He asked. The alien queen attempted to stand, but collapsed against him. Jack made his decision, quickly lifting her into his arms. She was lighter than she looked, though still a substantial weight. My ship, she protested, it must not be found. There is nothing we can do about your ship right now, Jack said as he carried her toward his house first. We need to treat your wound. Then we can figure out the rest inside his small farmhouse. Jack laid the alien visitor on his couch, her purple skin stark against the faded brown fabric. He brought his first aid kit, though he wondered how human medicine would work on an alien. The wound on her side was a perfect circle about the size of a quarter, the edges cauterized as if by intense heat. My name is Zira. She projected into his mind, High Queen of the Lumina Empire. Jack blinked in surprise. I'm just Jack Redmond, farmer. You are now much more than that. Zira replied, her amber eyes fixed on his face. You are the first human to make contact with my kind, the first to show kindness rather than fear. As Jack cleaned her wound, following her mental instructions about what would help and what might harm her unique physiology. He learned more about Zira and her world. The Lumina Empire spanned 27 star systems. Their civilization, millions of years more advanced than Earth. They had been watching humans for centuries, debating whether Earth was ready for contact. I was sent to observe, Zira explained, to make final assessment before the council votes on whether to reveal ourselves. Her large eyes blinked slowly. I did not expect to be shot down. Who shot you down? Jack asked as he wrapped a bandage around her slender torso. Unknown, she replied, but not your military. Not yet, they are still searching. They detected my entry into your atmosphere, but lost track when my shields engaged before impact. Jack looked out the window as the first light of dawn touched the horizon. They would not have much time. We need to move, he said. The crash will bring people here soon. Military scientists, police? I live too close to the Nellis range. They monitor everything. Out here, where will we go? Zira asked, her voice in his mind sounding stronger now. I have a jeep. Jack said, we can head deeper into the desert. I know places where people never go, but it's rough country. Zira sat up slowly, her silver garment repairing itself around her as she moved. I must reach the emergency beacon in my ship. She said it is undamaged, but I cannot activate it. Remotely. Jack shook his head. Too dangerous, he argued. They will be watching the crash site by now. Zira looked at him. Her alien features somehow conveying both authority and vulnerability without the beacon. My rescue ship cannot find me, she explained. I will be stranded here. They will not search for 90 of your days before declaring me. Lost. Jack ran a hand through his hair, thinking quickly he had nothing keeping him here. His farm barely produced enough to sustain him since the drought began. 3 years ago, he had no family left since his parents died. No real friends since his marriage to Nancy fell apart. All right, he said, making his decision. We will wait 3 days for the initial search to die down, then circle back to your ship to activate the beacon. But we need to be far away by then. Can you travel? Zira stood, her movements fluid despite her injury. I can travel, she confirmed. But our journey will be difficult. Your desert is harsh under a single sun. Jack gathered supplies, water, food, first aid equipment, a tent, his old military gear from his brief service years. He loaded it all into his jeep as Zira watched from the window her alien presence in his farmhouse, the strangest thing he had ever experienced as the sun rose fully over the horizon. Jack helped Zira into his jeep, covering her with a blanket to hide her from casual observation. He took one last look at the only home he had ever known, knowing he might never see it again. Where to first? Zira asked as the engine rumbled to life. Death Valley, Jack replied with a grim smile. No one will look for us in the hottest place on Earth. As they drove away, dust billowing behind them. Neither noticed the black helicopter appearing as a speck in the distant sky heading toward the crashed alien ship. The first sign that their journey would be even more dangerous than they imagined. The jeep bounced over the rough terrain as Jack steered them deeper into the desert. Zira sat beside him, her large amber eyes taking in the barren landscape with fascination. Your world is so dry, she commented, her thoughts flowing easily into his mind now that their connection had strengthened on Lumina. We have great oceans covering most of the surface. Land is precious. Jack smiled. It's not all like this. He said America has forests, mountains, lakes. This is just one small part. They drove until midday when the heat became too intense. Even with the jeep's air conditioning running at full blast, Jack pulled into the shadow of a large rock formation. We should rest during the hottest part of the day. He explained travel at dawn and dusk like the desert animals. Zira nodded her approval. I must rest to heal. She admitted her normally vibrant purple skin had dulled slightly under the harsh sun. Jack set up a small camp in the shade using a tarp to create extra protection from the sun. He helped Zira sit comfortably against the rock face and offered her water, which she accepted gratefully. Your body is mostly water like ours, she observed as she drank. But you lose it so quickly in this heat. Jack checked her wound. The strange circular burn seemed to be healing faster than any human injury would, though it clearly still caused her pain. He applied a fresh bandage following her instructions. Tell me about your world, he said as they sat in the shade eating the sandwiches he had packed. You said females rule. Zira's eyes lit up as she began to explain her civilization on Lumina. Females were naturally larger, stronger, and more numerous than males. Evolutionary adaptations to their harsh twin suns and strong gravity. Their society had developed with females as the warriors, leaders, and decision-makers, while males served as advisors, caregivers, and artists. It is not oppression, she clarified, seeing his expression. Each gender has value. Each serves the empire in their way. Males are highly respected for their emotional intelligence and creativity. It is simply that females evolved for leadership and protection, and you're not just any female. Jack noted. You said you're the High Queen. Zira lowered her eyes in a gesture that seemed almost humble. Yes, she confirmed. I was chosen from all the queens of the 27 worlds. My decisions affect billions. My mission here was of highest importance. Jack let out a low whistle. So I've got the alien equivalent of the president, hiding in my jeep. More than that. Zira corrected. I am chosen by blood right and merit. I rule until death or until I choose to step down. Your leaders serve short terms. As the day cooled, they packed up and continued their journey. Jack kept to the smallest dirt tracks avoiding any signs of civilization. They saw a military helicopter in the distance once, but it moved in the opposite direction, searching near where they had begun. By nightfall, they had traveled nearly 80 miles from Jack's farm. He found a sheltered canyon to make camp for the night. The stars appeared brilliant in the clear desert sky. Zira gazed upward. "I can see my home system from here," she said, pointing to a cluster of stars that looked no different to Jack's eyes. 3 stars orbiting each other. That is Lumina. Jack built a small fire, careful to keep it low and hidden. The night desert grew cold quickly, and he worried about Zira's comfort. Her species evolved under multiple suns and seemed sensitive to temperature. "Changes. Do your people know what happened to you?" he asked as they sat beside the fire. "They know my ship went down," she replied, "but not where exactly. Or if I survive, the impact protocol dictates they wait 90 days before sending a rescue mission, unless I activate the emergency beacon. And if you don't activate it, then they will declare me lost and the Council will vote on whether to continue observation of Earth or abandon it as too primitive and dangerous." Zira's mental voice carried a note of sadness. "I was to be the deciding voice. Many on the Council already believe humans are too violent to join the galactic community." Jack poked at the fire with a stick. "Are they wrong?" he asked honestly. Zira studied him, her alien features unreadable. "In the flickering light, some humans are violent," she acknowledged, "but others like you show remarkable compassion. You did not know me. You had no reason to help yet. You risked everything." "I just did what anyone would do." Jack mumbled, embarrassed. "No." Zira corrected, "That is precisely what makes your action special. Not all would do the same. Many of your kind would have called your authorities immediately out of fear. Some might have tried to harm me for being different. Your choice was uniquely brave." They talked long into the night. Jack told her about his life, how he inherited the farm when his parents died in a car accident, how his marriage to Nancy fell apart after years of struggling to make the farm profitable, how isolated he had become in recent years. Zira shared stories of her world, describing crystal cities that floated among the clouds, oceans teeming with creatures that glowed in the dark forests where plants communicated through networks of light before they slept. Zira checked a small device she had brought from her ship, tapping at symbols. Jack couldn't understand. "What is that?" he asked. "At a scanner?" She replied, "It monitors communications in the area. Your government has established a search grid. They are moving methodically from my crash site outward." "How far away are they?" Jack asked, concern evident in his voice. 50 of your miles," she answered, "but moving quickly. We must change direction tomorrow. Head south instead of east." Jack nodded as he spread out his sleeping bag. He offered it to Zira, but she declined, explaining that her bodysuit regulated her temperature. He insisted she take the tent while he slept under the stars as he lay looking up at the night sky. Jack wondered at the strange turn his life had taken 3 days ago. He had been a failing farmer with no prospects now. He was helping an alien queen evade government capture. Somewhere in that vast darkness was her home world, with its 3 suns and crystal cities, a place humans had never seen, would never see if Zira couldn't reach her beacon. And her people abandoned contact with Earth. Sleep came fitfully interrupted by dreams of being chased by faceless men in black suits and helicopters with searchlights that turned the night to day. He woke at dawn to find Zira already awake, her eyes focused on her scanner, her expression grave. "What is it?" he asked, sitting up quickly. "They have found something," she said, showing him the screen which displayed patterns and symbols. "He couldn't read a signal from my ship. They are gathering in greater numbers." Jack packed up their camp quickly, loading everything into the jeep. "We need to move," he said. "The signal might lead them to us." Zira placed a slender hand on his arm. "Not yet," she said. "They are still focusing on the ship. We have time, but our path back has been cut off. We cannot reach the beacon." Jack studied the horizon, thinking a backup plan forming in his mind. "If we can go back to your ship, then we need to find another way to contact your people. Do they monitor any human communications radio satellite?" Zira considered this. "They monitor your major communication networks." "Yes, but without proper equipment, I cannot send a message they would recognize. Then we need proper equipment." Jack said, starting the jeep. "I know where we might find it, but it's risky. We would have to enter a town." Zira's eyes widened in alarm. "I cannot be seen." Jack reached into the back of the Jeep, pulling out a wide-brimmed hat and a scarf. We can disguise you, he suggested. Cover your skin, wear sunglasses for your eyes. It's not perfect, but in a small town, people mind their own business. Zira touched her face, considering if we must. She agreed. But the risk is great. As they drove south, Jack explained. His plan there was a small observatory in a town about 60 miles away. Amateur astronomers, but with powerful equipment. They might be able to use it to send a signal. The sun climbed higher in the sky as they drove the heat building despite the early hour. Jack watched Zira with concern. Her breathing seemed labored, the desert conditions taking a toll on her alien physiology. Are you all right? He asked. I will manage, she replied. But my species evolved with more moisture in the air. This dryness is difficult. Jack offered her more water, which she accepted gratefully. The desert stretched endlessly before them, beautiful in its stark emptiness but increasingly dangerous as their supplies dwindled and the search intensified behind them. Neither spoke for some time, each lost in their own thoughts about the journey ahead and the unlikely partnership that fate had forced upon them. A failing farmer and an alien queen, both far from home, both risking everything on a desperate plan. Dawn brought new dangers. Zira's scanner beeped an urgent warning, waking them both from a light sleep. Jack rolled to his feet instantly. Alert military drones, she explained, showing him the screen. Their search pattern has intensified since the observatory. Transmission, how close? Jack asked, peering out from the cave entrance. Too close, Zira replied, 7 miles and approaching. We must move deeper into the canyons where their sensors will be less effective. They packed quickly, loading only essential supplies. Into backpacks, the Jeep would be too visible now, too easily tracked. They would continue on foot. Jack covered the Jeep with a tarp and scattered sand and rocks over it, hopefully hiding it from casual observation. They slipped out of the cave as the sun rose, moving quickly through narrow canyon passages that wound between towering red rock formations. The day grew hotter as they hiked, Jack rationing their water carefully. Zira struggled with the conditions, her species not adapted to extreme heat and dryness without the sustaining energy of multiple suns. We need to find shade, Jack said, noticing her labored breathing. The scanner indicated drones to the north, so they headed south deeper into the maze of canyons. By midday, they found shelter. Beneath an overhanging cliff face, Zira sank gratefully into the shade. Her purple skin dulled to a lavender gray. You need more than water, Jack realized, watching her with concern. You said your people evolved under 3 suns. What happens with only one energy deficiency? She explained. We absorb solar radiation differently than humans. Our cells require specific wavelengths found in abundance on Lumina. Here on Earth, I must conserve energy as there. Anything I can do to help? He asked. She shook her head. This is temporary. The rescue ship will provide proper sustenance. They rested through the hottest part of the day, Jack keeping watch while Zira entered a meditation state to conserve energy. The distant buzz of drones occasionally drifted on the hot breeze, but none came close enough to spot them. As evening approached, Jack checked their supplies. They had enough water for 2 more days if they were careful. Food would last a bit longer if they were very lucky. The rescue ship would arrive before either ran out. Zira opened her eyes as the temperature began to drop. I have received confirmation, she said, excitement clear in her mental voice. The rescue ship has entered your solar system. Jack's heart leaped. How soon? 24 hours, she replied. They must approach carefully to avoid detection by your planetary defenses. Another day. Jack nodded. We can make it. They moved again as darkness fell, using the cover of night to put more distance between themselves and the search perimeter. Jack carried both packs now. Zira's strength fading despite her determination, the canyons grew deeper, more complex. A natural labyrinth that both protected and confused them. They rested at midnight beneath a starry sky more brilliant than Jack had ever seen. The Milky Way, a river of light across the darkness. Which one is your rescue ship? He asked, gazing upward. Not visible to naked eye, Zira replied. Our ships use light-bending technology. She pointed to a section of sky near the handle of the Big Dipper. But they will be there. Jack built a small fire shielded by rocks to prevent its light from being seen from above. The night desert grew cold quickly, and he worried about Zira. Her alien physiology seemed increasingly stressed by Earth conditions as they sat by the fire. Zira removed a small crystal from her pocket. It glowed with an inner light, changing colors as she manipulated it. "What is that?" Jack asked. "Memory crystal." She explained, "It contains images of my homeworld. Would you like to see?" When he nodded, she placed the crystal between them, and it projected a three-dimensional image into the air above the fire. Jack gasped at the sight of alien landscapes, crystal towers that seemed to float among purple clouds. 3 suns, of different colors hanging in a turquoise sky, oceans that glowed with bioluminescent life. "Beautiful," he whispered. "This would be your home," Zira said, "if you choose to come." The images shifted, showing alien beings, similar to Zira, moving through grand halls, gathered in council chambers, celebrating in vast plaza. "Our civilization has existed for 50,000 of your years," she continued. "We have solved problems your scientists have not yet even identified, eliminated disease, extended life, conquered gravity. Why do you need humans?" Then Jack asked, "If you're so advanced, diversity?" She replied simply, "New perspectives, new ideas, new art, new stories. No species can truly evolve in isolation. We believe exchange between different kinds of intelligent life is essential to growth." The crystal images faded as Zira put it away, conserving its energy like her own. The fire crackled between them, casting flickering shadows on the canyon walls. "Would I ever come back to Earth?" Jack asked the question that had been troubling him. "If you wished," Zira said, "though the journey is long by your standards, months for us. Mere days with our technology. You could return to visit, but few who have joined us ever choose to return permanently." Jack thought of his failed farm, his empty life. The loneliness that had become so familiar, he barely noticed it anymore. What did Earth hold for him now? Especially after seeing what waited among the stars. They slept in shifts. Jack taking the first watch, sitting with his back against a rock wall, listening to the night sounds of the desert. It seemed strange that in the vastness of the universe, he had been the one to find Zira to help her. The coincidence seemed too great. When Zira woke for her shift, she sensed his thoughts. "It was not coincidence," she confirmed. "Our ship's sensors detected your biorhythms as I approached your isolation, your emotional state." She hesitated. "Your loneliness. You chose to crash near me." Jack realized, not exactly. She corrected, "When my ship was damaged. I directed it toward the nearest compatible consciousness, one that might help, rather than harm." Jack wasn't sure how to feel about this revelation. Had he been manipulated or simply chosen for qualities Zira had somehow sensed from orbit? "Does it matter?" Zira asked gently, reading his uncertainty. "You still chose to help me. No one forced that decision." "Perhaps not," Jack agreed. "But knowing you selected me changes things for the better." "I hope," Zira said, "you were not random." Jack Redmond, "You were chosen because something in you called to something in me." The next morning brought new challenges. A military helicopter appeared over the canyon rim, flying low and slow, scanning the terrain. Jack and Zira pressed themselves into a narrow crevice, barely breathing until it passed. "They are getting closer." Zira observed, her voice concerned. "How much longer until your ship arrives?" Jack asked, checking his watch. 12 hours. She replied, "If all proceeds as planned." They needed to find a safe location for the pickup, somewhere open enough for the ship to land but protected from observation. Jack studied the terrain, trying to remember the maps he had seen of this area. "There's a dry lake bed about 5 miles south," he said, "should be flat enough for landing but surrounded by high ridges for protection." They moved carefully, Zira growing weaker with each passing hour, the lack of proper solar radiation taking its toll on her alien physiology. Jack ended up carrying her pack as well as his own. When she stumbled, he supported her, his arm around her waist, her unusual height making it awkward but necessary. The sun beat down mercilessly as they hiked, sweat soaking Jack's shirt. Zira remained dry, her body conserving all moisture. The canyon walls provided some shade, but the heat reflected off the rocks, creating an oven-like effect. By late afternoon, they reached the dry lake bed, a flat expanse of cracked mud surrounded by weathered cliffs. It was perfect for their needs, hidden from casual observation yet open to the sky. Jack helped Zira to a sheltered spot beneath an overhanging rock where she could rest. He set up their remaining water and food within easy reach. I must conserve all energy. Now she explained, her mental voice fainter than before. The rescue ship will need a clear signal to lock onto my biological pattern. Jack nodded, understanding. She needed to enter a deeper meditative state, something like hibernation. He would stand watch, protect her, until the ship arrived. As the sun began to set, Jack heard the distant sound of engines. Not the steady thump of helicopter blades, but the rumble of vehicles approaching by land. He climbed to a high point on the ridge and peered out, his heart sinking at the sight. A convoy of military trucks was making its way across the desert toward their position, still miles away, but clearly headed in their direction. Somehow they had narrowed down the search area. Jack scrambled back down to Zira. He could not wake her from her deep meditation state. She was too far gone, preparing for the rescue. He would have to handle this himself. Protect her until her ship arrived. He checked his watch. 10 hours until the estimated arrival time. The military would be here in 2, perhaps 3. If the rough terrain slowed them down, he needed a diversion. Something to buy time. Jack gathered what supplies remained and formulated a plan. He would create a false trail leading away from the lake bed, plant evidence of their passage in another direction by precious hours while the military followed the wrong path. As darkness fell, he set out, moving quickly across the rocky terrain, leaving subtle signs for trained trackers to find a footprint here. A disturbed stone. There a scrap. A fabric caught on a thorny bush. He hiked miles from their true location before doubling back, careful to leave no trail on his return journey. The night grew cold, stars blanketing the sky in their millions. Somewhere up there Zira's people were approaching, risking their own safety to rescue their queen, all because one human farmer had chosen compassion over fear. Midnight passed in tense silence. Jack checked his watch every few minutes, time seeming to crawl. The military convoy had stopped several miles away, setting up a perimeter. His diversion had bought them some time, but not enough. Zira remained in her trance-like state, her breathing so shallow. Jack had to check repeatedly to ensure she still lived. Her purple skin had faded to an ashen gray. The Earth environment taking a severe toll on her alien physiology. Dawn was still hours away when Jack heard the first drone, a faint buzzing growing louder. He pressed himself and Zira deeper into the shadow of their rocky shelter, watching as the small aircraft passed overhead, its sensors scanning the terrain. More followed, a coordinated search pattern. Tightening around their position, Jack held his breath as one hovered directly above them for long seconds before moving on. Had their heat signatures been detected? The tension was unbearable. Zira suddenly stirred, her eyes opening. They pulsed with a weak amber light coming. She whispered into his mind, "They are coming soon." "How soon?" Jack asked urgently. "The military is closing in. 1 hour." She replied, "Coordinates locked. Rescue approved too long." Jack thought, looking toward the eastern horizon where the first hint of gray suggested approaching dawn. They would be discovered before then. He made his decision quickly. "We need to move." He told her, "Create another diversion." Zira struggled to sit up. "I cannot walk," she admitted. "Then I'll carry you," Jack said, gathering their few remaining supplies. He lifted her into his arms, her tall frame awkward, but not impossibly heavy. Thanks to her species' different bone structure and the lower gravity of Earth compared to her homeworld, she felt almost hollow. Like a bird, Jack began walking, choosing a path that led away from both the military perimeter and their intended landing zone. His plan to draw attention in the opposite direction, create confusion, buy precious time. The pre-dawn light grew stronger. As he trudged across the desert floor, Zira cradled in his arms, her head against his shoulder. Her breathing labored, her strength fading. "Hold on." He whispered, "Just a little longer." The drone returned, louder this time. "Lower." Jack ducked beneath an overhanging rock, pressing Zira against the cool stone wall as the machine hovered, searching the metal whine of its rotors painfully close. Discovered. Zira projected suddenly, her body tensing. Approach. Vectors changed. Landing zone. Compromised. Jack's heart sank. "What now?" "New coordinates," she replied weakly. "There is a canyon 3 miles west, completely shielded from orbital observation. They will attempt blind landing 3 miles. Jack repeated, looking at the rough terrain ahead. The strengthening light of dawn would make them visible to searching eyes soon. "I must send new signals," Zira explained. "Requires energy. Save your strength." Jack said, "It'll get us there." He began walking again, faster now despite his burden, each step carrying them toward hope, the desert awakening around them, small creatures scurrying for cover. Birds calling from hidden nests, the beauty of Earth's wilderness, contrasting with the danger that pursued them. 2 miles and Jack heard the unmistakable sound of helicopter rotors. Not the drones, but full-sized military aircraft they had been spotted. The chase was on. He broke into a run. Zira clutched against his chest, her arms around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder to shield her alien features from being seen from. Above, the helicopter grew louder, circling overhead spotlight cutting through the fading darkness. There Jack gasped, pointing ahead with his chin. A narrow opening between towering rock walls, the canyon Zira had indicated. They reached it, just as a voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Stop immediately. This is a restricted area by order of the United States government. Jack ignored the command, plunging into the shadows of the canyon, zigzagging between massive boulders, the helicopter unable to follow. Through the narrow space he ran until his lungs burned, until his legs trembled, until sweat blinded his eyes, but he did not stop, did not slow. The canyon widened suddenly into a circular area ringed by high cliffs, a natural amphitheater invisible, from the air perfect for a landing. Jack gently placed Zira on a flat rock in the center of the space. She seemed barely conscious, her energy critically low. How much time, he asked, between gasping breaths, minutes. She whispered, they come, he could hear. The soldiers now shouting to each other as they followed on foot. The clatter of equipment, the crackle of radios. They were close, too close. Jack looked around desperately for a weapon, a hiding place, anything that might help them survive the next few minutes. Nothing but rocks and sand and the pale sky above visible through the circular opening. Zira touched his hand, drawing his attention, her amber eyes glowing with sudden intensity. Save yourself, she projected. Leave me never. Jack replied. Without hesitation, I didn't carry you across 50 miles of desert to abandon you now. A shimmer appeared in the air above them, subtle at first, then stronger, a distortion in reality itself, like heat waves but moving with purpose. Forming patterns, the soldiers reached the entrance to the circular space, weapons raised, flashlights cutting through the lingering shadows. Stop right there. One shouted. Step away from the alien. Jack stood, placing himself between Zira and the soldiers, his hands raised. But his stance defiant. No, he said simply. The air split open above them, a soundless tear in reality, expanding into a swirling vortex of light and color. The soldiers stumbled back, shouting in alarm, raising weapons, but too stunned to fire. From the vortex descended a ship unlike anything human eyes had seen before. Not metallic, but seemingly alive, pulsing with internal light, changing colors as it settled gently onto the canyon floor. No larger than a small bus, but somehow giving the impression of vast internal space. A door appeared in its side, sliding open to reveal 2 figures similar to Zira, but larger, their purple skin vibrant with health, their amber eyes scanning the situation quickly, assessing the soldiers. Finally recovered enough to aim their weapons at the ship. Don't shoot, Jack called desperately. They're peaceful, too late. The alien visitors raised their hands in unison, and the soldiers froze in place. Weapons still raised, eyes still open, but completely immobile. The aliens moved quickly to Zira, lifting her with gentle efficiency, their hands glowing as they touched her, transferring energy, healing her. Jack watched in amazement as her color returned, her strength visibly flowing back high. Queen One said in Jack's mind, addressing Zira, we must depart immediately. Earth defenses have detected our presence, planetary response imminent. Zira stood shakily, supported by her rescuers. She turned to Jack, her amber eyes now bright and clear, the connection between them stronger than ever. It is time, she said. The choice is yours. Stay or come with me. Jack looked at the frozen soldiers, at the alien ship, at the desert he had called home his entire life. What waited for him here? A failing farm. Loneliness, obscurity. What waited? Out there among the stars, adventure, discovery, a whole new life, perhaps even love. I choose you, he said simply. Zira extended her hand to him, her purple fingers intertwining with his tan human ones together. They walked toward the ship, the other aliens, watching with interest, the first human to willingly join their civilization, a historic moment. At the doorway, Jack paused, looking back at Earth one last time. The sunrise painting the canyon walls red and gold, beautiful in its alien way. He would miss some things, the smell of rain on dry earth, the call of coyotes at twilight, the taste of fresh baked bread. We will return someday. Zira promised, reading his thoughts. This is not goodbye forever. Inside, the ship was larger than seemed possible, from outside walls flowing like liquid crystal, changing colors in response to the crew's movements. Controls that responded to thought rather than touch gravity. That felt natural, yet somehow lighter. Zira led him to a central chamber, the heart of the vessel where the pilot waited, another female taller than the others, her skin a deeper purple, her presence commanding. High Queen. The pilot acknowledged, bowing slightly, then turning curious eyes to Jack. So this is the human who saved you, this is Jack Redmond. Zira confirmed. He carried me 90 miles through a hot desert when he could have abandoned me. A debt of honor. The pilot noted, more than that. Zira replied, her hand still holding his. He has chosen to join us, the first of his kind. To do so, the pilot nodded approval as she returned to her station. Planetary forces approaching. She announced, escape vector plotted. Jack felt a momentary flutter of fear as the ship hummed to life. Would he ever see Earth again? Would he regret his decision? Zira sensed his uncertainty. Do not fear. She reassured him, our worlds will meet officially soon enough. Your bravery has ensured that the Council will vote for contact. You have bridged our civilizations. The ship rose silently. The frozen soldiers below still unmoving through the open roof of the canyon into the brightening sky. The curve of Earth becoming visible as they ascended higher atmosphere. Thinning stars visible even in daytime. In seconds they had left Earth's gravity behind. The blue planet shrinking to a marble, then a dot as the ship accelerated at impossible speeds. Space bending around them in ways Jack could not comprehend. Welcome to your new life, Zira said as Earth disappeared from view. 6 months later, Jack stood beside Queen Zira in the great crystal hall of Luminous City. As she addressed the High Council of the 27 worlds, he wore ceremonial robes marking him as her chosen consort, his human features drawing curious stares from the assembled alien dignitaries. The small town of Copper Springs appeared on the horizon like a mirage shimmering in the heat. Just 20 buildings clustered around a single main street. Jack slowed the jeep as they approached. Remember, keep your head down. Speak only to me through our connection. If anyone asks, you're my cousin from out of town with a skin condition. Zira adjusted the wide-brimmed hat and wrapped the scarf more securely around her neck and lower face, the sunglasses hiding her unusual amber eyes. I understand, she projected into his mind. Though I do not like this deception. Sometimes we need to bend the truth to do what's right. Jack replied as he parked the jeep near a small grocery store. I need to get more supplies and find out where the observatory is. The store bell jingled as Jack entered. An elderly woman looked up from behind the counter, her eyes curious at the sight of a stranger. Small towns rarely got visitors, especially ones as dusty and tired-looking as Jack. Afternoon, she greeted him. What brings you to Copper Springs? Just passing through, Jack replied, trying to sound casual. Need to stock up before heading back out. The woman nodded, her eyes drifting to the jeep where Zira waited. That your friend out there? She asked. Why don't they come in? Skin condition, Jack said. The rehearsed excuse coming easily. Sun sensitivity. You know. The old woman made a sympathetic noise as Jack gathered water, jerky dried fruits and other supplies that would last without refrigeration. He added a large sun hat and several more scarves to his pile. Say, is the observatory around here still open? He asked as he paid for his supplies, trying to sound merely curious. Sure, as the woman replied. Amateur place, but they got some fancy equipment donations from the university in Las Vegas. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Conspiracy nuts, if you ask me. Always watching the skies for aliens. She chuckled at the irony, unaware of how close she was to the truth. Jack forced a smile. Yeah, crazy stuff, he agreed. How do I find it? Up that road? She pointed through the window. About 3 miles. Follow the signs. Can't miss the dome, Jack. Thanked her and carried his supplies to the jeep. Zira sat perfectly still, her alien features hidden behind the disguise. The woman Was suspicious, Zira commented as they drove away. Her thoughts were loud, just small-town curiosity. Jack reassured her nothing to worry about. They followed the winding road up a small hill until they saw the white dome of the observatory standing. Stark against the blue sky, a fence surrounded the property, but the gate stood open. Jack parked some distance away. Let's wait until dark. He suggested there will be fewer people around. They waited in the shade of a large rock formation, watching as the sun began its descent. A few cars came and went from the observatory, but by nightfall the parking lot was empty, except for a single truck. This is our chance, Jack said. Let's go. They approached cautiously, Zira moving with a natural grace despite her injury. Jack tried the door of the observatory, finding it locked. Can you open it? He asked. Zira. She examined the lock, then removed a small device from her pocket, touching it to the metal. The lock clicked open. Handy, Jack said, impressed. Standard technology, Zira replied. We have not used physical keys for 10,000 years. Inside, the observatory was cool and dark. The main room, dominated by a large telescope pointed toward the sky through the open roof dome, computers and monitoring equipment lined the walls. Zira moved immediately to the equipment, her fingers dancing across the keyboards faster than Jack could follow. Can you use this stuff? He asked. Primitive but functional, she replied. I can modify it to send a specific frequency signal. If you can distract anyone who might come, as if on cue they heard a door open and footsteps approaching. Jack pushed Zira behind a large equipment cabinet just as a man entered the room. Hey. Who are you? The man demanded, his hand reaching for a phone. On the wall, just an enthusiast, Jack improvised. I saw the dome from the road, always been interested in astronomy. Door was open. He lied smoothly. The man frowned. The door shouldn't be open, he said suspiciously. I'm calling the sheriff. Jack stepped forward, his hands raised. Look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trespass. I just wanted to see the telescope my dad used to take me stargazing before he died. He added the personal touch, hoping to appeal to the man's sympathy. The man hesitated, his hand still on the phone. You should have come during visiting hours, he said, his tone softening slightly. I know, Jack agreed. I'm just passing through town, won't be here tomorrow. Behind the cabinet, Zira worked silently, connecting her small device to the observatory's computer system. She needed only a few minutes to configure the signal. The man sighed. Fine, he said. I guess I can show you around real quick. But then you gotta leave. Where's your car? Parked down the road, Jack said. Didn't want to intrude. The man gave him an odd look as he moved toward the telescope. Let me show you what we're tracking tonight, he said. We got some interesting activity in the Cassiopeia sector. Jack followed, listening with feigned interest as the man explained the observatory's work, asking questions to keep him talking and facing away from where Zira worked. It was almost too easy. The man clearly loved talking about astronomy and barely noticed. As minutes ticked by, Jack positioned himself to block any view of the equipment area where Zira continued her modifications. Suddenly, a series of lights began flashing on the control panel. The man turned in alarm. What the? He exclaimed. That's not right. At that moment, Zira stepped out from her hiding place. Her disguise removed her purple skin and amber eyes fully visible in the dim observatory light. The man froze, his mouth open in shock. Zira raised her hand and a soft light pulsed from her palm. The man slumped unconscious to the floor. What did you do to him? Jack asked, rushing to check the man's pulses. Sleep inducement. Zira explained. He will wake in 1 hour with no memory of the past 2 hours. Did you get the signal sent? Jack asked, helping her disconnect her device from the observatory's systems. Yes, she confirmed. I have transmitted our coordinates and situation. A rescue ship will be dispatched immediately, but they must travel carefully to avoid detection. How long will it take? Jack asked as they hurried from the observatory. 3 of your days, she answered, if all goes well, but we must be far from here. By then your government will detect the transmission soon. They drove through the night, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and Copper Springs. Zira monitored her scanner, watching for signs of pursuit. Dawn, they had reached a region of rugged canyons and tall rock formations perfect for hiding. Jack steered the jeep off any visible trails until they found a narrow canyon with a small cave opening. We can rest here, he said, pulling the jeep as far into the cave as it would go. The vehicle's dusty brown color blending with the rock. Zira checked her scanner one last time before shutting it down to conserve power. They have detected the signal, she confirmed. Search patterns are shifting this direction. How far away are they? Jack asked. Unloading their supplies, closest units are 100 miles. But moving quickly, she replied. We should remain hidden. They set up camp deeper in the cave, which extended further than it first appeared. A small underground spring provided fresh water, a stroke of luck that made Jack smile for the first time in days. Zira seemed stronger, her wound almost completely healed, though the desert conditions still taxed her physiology. She examined the spring water with interest. Your planet has remarkable resources, she observed. Despite the harsh surface conditions, life finds a way to thrive. Jack nodded, settling against the cave wall. This place was probably important to Native Americans long before Europeans came here, he said, gesturing to faint pictographs visible on the stone walls. Zira studied the ancient drawings, tracing them with her slender fingers. Your species has much history, many stories. She said this is valuable. They spent the day resting, preparing for what would come next. Zira explained more about her people and their technology, how they had achieved space travel thousands of years before humans had even developed writing, how they had seeded compatible planets with life forms that could eventually evolve into intelligent species. You mean humans were created by aliens? Jack asked, surprised. Not created, Zira clarified. Guided your basic form, evolved naturally on Earth. But certain genetic markers were introduced to help speed cognitive development. Jack tried to process this information. It changed everything humans had ever believed about themselves, their origins, their place in the universe. Why tell me this, he asked. Because you have earned truth, Zira replied, and because soon you must make a choice. What choice? Jack asked, confused. When my people come, you must decide whether to return to your life here or to come with me. She said, her amber eyes intent on his face. Go with you to your world. Jack repeated, stunned. Yes, Zira confirmed, it is rare but not unprecedented. Sometimes when contact is made with developing worlds, certain individuals demonstrate qualities worthy of inclusion in the Empire. Jack fell silent, considering her words. Leave Earth, everything he had ever known, to travel to an alien world millions of light years away. It is not a decision to make lightly. Zira added, sensing his thoughts. You would be the first human to join our civilization, a bridge between our world. Outside the cave, the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple, casting long shadows across the desert landscape. Inside, Jack and Zira continued their conversation. Speaking of possibilities, futures neither had imagined 3 days earlier. Why me? Jack finally asked. There must be humans, more qualified scientists, doctors, leaders.